Many Iowa workers are being called back to work this weekend as some counties begin to lift their restrictions on businesses. But what rights do you have as an employee if you don't feel safe returning back to work? Joining us now is attorney Stuart Higgins, who specializes in this area. Stuart, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course, we've heard about on a national level trying to get the meatpacking plants going again, not disrupting the food supply and so forth. And there is an issue where some people may be told you have to come back to work. They may have objections. What can you say to people who might be put in that situation about whether they don't want to go back to work, but their employer is saying, well, we're telling you to and we need you to come back to work?
Well, first off, I sympathize with the workers that are put in a position where they have a decision to make as to whether to go back to a workplace that may be unsafe, risking infection for themselves and infection for their family. Legally speaking, if you're talking about the issue of unemployment benefits, Iowa Workforce Development put out guidance yesterday that provided that under most circumstances, you would be ineligible for unemployment benefits if called back to work and you refuse to go without good cause, and Workforce Development had listed out some exceptions to that rule.
Okay. Yeah, so this is, as we were discussing earlier, is kind of one of those instances where cases like this are just going to have to be tested. I mean, probably someone's going to have to sue and say, I wasn't able to get an employment, but there was a valid reason, and maybe a judge is going to have to decide whether people really had legitimate, valid reasons to not come back to work and then not be penalized for it.
Well, I think that's kind of true. I mean, there are some exceptions that are laid out right on the front end. So if you are an employee who has contracted COVID-19, has had a family member who has contracted COVID-19, who has suffered COVID-19 and has medical complications that make it impossible for you to do the essential job, if you have lost child care as a result of COVID-19 or do not have transportation as a result of COVID-19, under those circumstances, you can still refuse to go back to work and be eligible for unemployment benefits. Aside from that, the issue is going to be whether or not the workplace is safe. The Iowa regulations governing unemployment provide that you can still be eligible for unemployment benefits if you quit because the workplace is unsafe. And so what is left to be determined is, what constitutes an unsafe work environment. And I think that the workforce development and the courts will probably have to get involved to offer some guidance as to what that is, what that means.
Do you feel like we're sort of on the cusp here of like a whole new chapter of labor law being opened as a result of COVID-19? Or do you think these issues have already been touched on but are just going to be revisited now as we are certain to see maybe a wave of these kind of conflicts where people are being called back but saying they have a very good reason not to go back?
Yeah, I don't know the answer as to what it's going to look like big picture, but I do know that this is going to create a lot of questions for a lot of people. A lot of workers are going to be very unsure about, what they should do, what is right for them and their family. They are put in a very difficult position where they risk, possible negative health consequences to death, to losing their income. Because if they either go to work and have these risks, if the workplace is not sufficiently safe, or they risk losing unemployment benefit and the social safety net and have to go out into the world where the job market is terrible and figure out how to support their family. So it is a very difficult situation. It's going to take some time to figure it out. And unfortunately, until workforce development starts to weigh in, it looks like there's going to be some continued uncertainty.
All right, interesting subject that I'm sure we'll be watching and talking about again, and always encouraging people if they feel they need legal representation in these labor issues to go ahead and seek that. Stuart Higgins, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.